Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes.
So I was not planning on seeing this in theaters. I was just going to watch it on Peacock since it released there the same day. But I
Right.
got invited out to go see it with a friend who I hadn't seen in literal years. So I went to see it with them and some of their friends. And these critics are tripping because that was easily like a
Oh, for
four, a four,
real.
maybe like a 4.5 out of 5 movie right there. It was good.
Good
On Rotten
movie.
Tomatoes, it has a 25% critic score, but it has an
I think
89% audience score. And
I think mm,
I was going to say, you can immediately tell why. It's because all the
yeah.
reviewers are old. There are a
Yeah. And
bunch
they don't
of
know anything about
there are a
FNAF.
bunch of either older millennials or Gen Xers who who this film just wasn't made for. It was made for
Right.
the Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids who grew up watching middle to like young millennials play this game on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's like I saw a statistic. It was like in most of the showings of FNAF, like no one was above the age of
Of
35,
course.
if that. Yeah.
But a lot of the critics are, so they just aren't getting what we like about it, which
Right.
is strange. I feel like I've never seen something be so divided by generation before. Like I feel like
Yeah.
when something's good, no matter what generation you're a part of, most people would just agree that it's good. This is the first time I've seen something where there's a whole generation of people who are like, "This movie is good. What are you guys talking about?" And the older generations are like, "No, it's not. What are you talking about?" Like a
Well,
lot
you
of the
saw
criticism I read is that it's boring and that it was too kid friendly, of which both
mhm.
I disagree with. Um,
Yeah.
I do think that it should have been shorter. It was like a hour 50. I think that this is the type of movie that should have been like an hour 30, maybe an hour 40.
Yeah.
Hour 50
I
is a
agree.
little too long. Um, but I was never really ever bored, even when we were outside of the pizzeria, because I personally found the characters compelling and like interesting,
Hmm.
and I wanted to learn more
Josh
about them.
Hutcherson did a great
Yeah,
job, by the
and
way.
his sister was
I
great.
was a little iffy. Yeah, I was a little iffy about him, but he did great. He did great.
Yeah, and Vanessa, of course, was very great. And
Yes, yes,
yeah, and some of the people I went with were also upset about it being PG-13, but the games have never been rated M, and
right.
yet they still managed to shape and mold and scare a generation. So why would the movie adaptation suddenly change that?
Right.
Plus,
People were like, I wanted more
they made
gore.
the PG-13 rating work,
Yeah.
and they still managed to have some fun and surprisingly gory moments.
Right.
Like there's one
Like
kill that
people
they show in a shadow, but then they show the aftermath of the dead bodies.
right.
And
Which was like, whoa.
like surprisingly just straight up show the detail in like a disfigured face for and that's very surprising for a PG-13 movie
Yeah.
that they managed to get away with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the animatronics in Pizzeria set looked great. So shout out
They
to the
did.
teams who worked on both of those because in terms of
Yeah, shout out
visuals,
to the
those are the things that needed to be perfect and as accurate to the
mhm.
source material as possible, and they more than succeeded.
Yep, the Jim Henson Company put their whole ankle into those animatronics, I swear.
Yeah, yeah. Um, any like spoiler-free things you want to say before we talk about a little bit of spoilers?
I just really enjoyed the movie. I went into it with really low expectations,
Same.
especially
I had like no
given
expectations. That's
yeah.
why I didn't
I
want
was
to
like
see it in
it's
theaters because I
totally
was just like I wasn't like particularly excited for it.
mhm, mhm. And like I'm not a FNAF fanatic, the rim shot, etc., etc. But I know enough about the lore and like enjoy the games enough that I'm like, if this movie is bad, I will be disappointed because I know what it could have been, you know? And again, I wasn't expecting it to be as like not scary, but like it was very unsettling for me. Like I went into it thinking it was gonna be a little more fun than it was. But it was less fun in all the best ways. There were some moments that genuinely like terrified me. Uh and my friends because I went to go see it with a group of friends also. My friends were laughing at me because they're like, it's FNAF, and I'm like, well, oh well, I'm scared, so shut up. But yeah, I had a great time seeing it. It's a good movie. Good fun.
Yeah. Getting into some spoilers. Spoiler alert. Make that clear right now. Spoiler alert.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I did not expect for the animatronics to be so chill
Yeah,
after
they
it was discovered
listen.
that they have children's souls in them. It was a very neat twist on what we'd usually expect. They were like they
Mhm.
were real chill after that. They were just like, oh, we're children inside of giant robots, but we're still
Yeah,
children, and that
right.
was
It's like
very
I would
surprising.
chill with them. I would chill with them, high key.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard was as great as
Uh
we all knew he would be, and I loved the Scream reference when he wiped the knife after he stabbed Vanessa. Oh,
oh, is that what that
that
was?
was yeah, that moment when he wiped the knife. That's what every Ghostface wipes the knife after they stab someone.
Oh, got you, got you.
And when he did it, I literally turned to the people beside me. I turned to my friend and said, "Have you seen Scream?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That was her." She was like, "I know." I was like, "Yes."
I did that same thing, but with like when there were like little nods to the games themselves and like the lore. Like it was me, my girlfriend, and then a friend of mine from college who lives in like West Virginia. She came down to see us. And I'd be like, I'd like shake my girlfriend and be like, that's from," but like really, really quietly. And she's like, "You're so excited right now," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I knew that Corey Kenshin was in it because he was in one of the trailers, but I had
right,
no idea that Matt Pat would have a cameo, and his
yeah."
cameo was hilarious.
In my showing, when he appeared on screen, like there was a groan that rippled throughout the theater, and then he was like, "That's just a theory," and ran off, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me."
What are people
It
crying
was
for? Matt
so
Pat's cool, but
Matt, that's cool. It was so silly.
yeah, it's sad that the king of Five Nights at Freddy's himself
Freddy's.
couldn't make a cameo, but hopefully he'll
Yeah,
pop up in the second one because he was busy
yeah.
around the time they were shooting that. But
Yep, working on his own movie. I'm excited for Iron Lung, by the way, just to derail a little bit.
yeah, I only
I love
heard
the
about it
game.
as I was talking about. Man, I'm surprised he's not in it. And then one of the people I went, said that he was working on the movie, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah,
The game is great.
what was I gonna say? This movie made more money opening night than Mario did,
I
and it
know.
definitely won't make as much money as Mario did, but it'll definitely seems like it'll make a lot and more than enough to greenlight a sequel. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
so,
they greenlighted one
oh
already.
yeah, I'm
It's in
excited
production.
to see where this franchise goes in
Yeah.
terms of the next game.
Also, it really surprised me that they went with I don't remember if the ending is from FNAF 2 or FNAF 3, but like the idea of Afton getting spring locked in front of all it's 2. It's 2. Yeah. With like the spring locking in front of all the children's souls and all that and them watching over him, that's from FNAF 2. I was surprised to see them go for that ending instead of like something else. That's not to say I didn't like it because I definitely did. FNAF 2 is my favorite. So I was like, yeah, that's so nice to see. But yeah, it was like, wow, that's a surprise.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see where the story goes. Honestly,
Same.
and
Excuse me.
I wonder how they're gonna do the story of like somebody like buying the rights to Freddy Fazbear and like reopening different locations and how they work that into the story.
Right. I can't wait to see what they do with Fazbear Frights, the location from FNAF 3. Cuz first of all, that phone guy is my favorite. Like he's so radical and silly, and I can't wait to see how they do him. And then also like just the idea of it, like none of the other animatronics, none of the other anything. It's just you, Springtrap, in the building. Like that FNAF 3, while the gameplay may not be solid, it's always had like it's always been the scariest to me because it's like I don't know, just the concept of it is terrifying. So it's like I hope that they work a little bit more of that
But
in.
like in the lore of the games, is
Mm.
Vanessa his daughter?
No, but he
Okay.
does have a daughter.
Okay, so they changed that because when Vanessa showed up, I was like, "What? She's showing up in the first movie? This character from the
Right.
most recent game, who was a
Game?
security guard,
Yeah, it's like what are we talking about?
now she's a cop." Like, yeah, that was very interesting.
This is weird. Yeah. I do like because I've heard the movies have their or the movie has its own continuity that's
Hmm.
like separate from the games, which I really appreciate that they did because I know that if they would have like tried to follow the continuity of the games, it would have been like a whole bunch of complaining about like oh it's not 1 to 1 or da, 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 they're missing this part
Yes,
of the lore.
it's
It's
not
like
one to one to these games that it is very clear weren't meant to have a cohesive story
to
to
begin
begin
with.
with. That I hate when people try to look. I know how you feel about the Zelda timeline, but it was never meant to work.
I know.
It was never meant to work, and that's how people are with FNAF. I'm like, it's fun to theorize. Same with Zelda. It's fun to try and make it work, but it wasn't really ever meant to work.
Right.
So if they did go and say this is canon, I'd be like, okay.
Cool.
Like the games didn't make sense, so and this does.
Right. It's
It's
like
it's
a
like
doubly,
Arcane.
yeah, doubly so because like there's a game in the FNAF continuity where it's like it's not even like the whole premise of it is that it's a eternal hell dimension that William Afton lives in and is forever subjected to like torture. Like
That's
the
wild.
game's so it's so insane. It's what game is it? Ultimate Custom Night. That's the lore of that game. You are William Afton, forced to relive his crimes over and over and over again for all eternity.
Yeah, Matthew Little was so good as
He
Afton.
was so good, so
Yeah, I
good.
wonder
Like
if
I
he'll
saw the
just be the voice when he shows up in the other movies, or if he'll actually still be in the suit.
I hope he'll still be in the suit because his physical acting was just
Yes,
as
when he
good as
walked
the
out
yeah.
like hunched over, it was hella creepy. It was good.
And it was so creepy. I was like, the rest of the animatronics I wasn't really scared of. I was like, oh,
It's
they're
because they
kind
were
of
nice, and
yeah,
like
they're chill.
you made them immediately less scary when they started being nice.
Right. It's like, oh, just they're babies, But then like when it was so good,
Yeah.
so good. And
So
it's like I saw the twist coming from a mile away. It's like who didn't, but
yeah.
it doesn't make it any less like amazing.
So in what's the most recent one called?
Security breach?
Yeah. So I know
Yeah.
that game was kind of unfinished when it released, and I don't know, I haven't kept up with it since I watched like Markiplier play it a while back,
Hmm.
and I know they added some DLC and they fixed some things
Yep.
because I know like
Yep.
early on, once you got to a certain point in the game, you couldn't save at the save spots anymore. And
Yeah.
that made it extremely difficult for anybody to beat the game. And a lot of people gave
Yep.
up on the game at that point. Did they ever fix that? Did
Yep.
they ever change that?
They did change it and they did fix it, but then also like there were a myriad other problems. Like the game is still low key kind of unfinished.
Yeah.
It's in a spot where it's like decently playable, but I still think it needs a lot
Yeah.
more work.
But also, what I wanted to add was I felt like they kept setting up Freddy to a Glamrock Freddy to eventually turn on you. Did he?
Right. As far as I can remember, because I kind of dropped Security Breach after watching the first initial playthroughs of this game sucks. As far as I know, no.
That sucks
Um,
because it is set up that he would. Because you
right,
arm him with all of the other animatronics like abilities, and I'm like, this is like it. They gave him the jaws of one of the I think the alligator or whatever, and the claws of the wolf, and like Chica's
right,
eyes, and like they just kept arming him with these diddly things. And I was like, I felt like they were setting him up to eventually, like somehow somebody takes control of him and he attacks you now. And I'm
right.
honestly upset that they didn't do that because that just felt perfect. And I don't feel like
Yeah.
you're subverting anything as much. You're just disappointing me.
Yep, yep, yep. And it's like the DLC I heard was much better, like much better than the main game.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch Markiplier play the DLC.
It's like story wise and just mechanically, like I heard it was so much better. So I have high hopes.
I
Might
want
revisit it.
like a straight up survival horror Five Nights at Freddy's game where you have some type of weapon and can fight back. And there's like it should take place in a like an animatronic factory where
Right,
they're making animatronics for like Fazbear locations across the world, and you have to like fight hordes of animatronics.
right. That would be slick. And then also, words. That was terrible. Circling back to the movie for a second. The electricity thing, like that whole shtick, was really good.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to be cheesy, but I like the way they did it.
yeah. But yeah.